Good morning. So I'm in London today because if you recall, last year I made a video where I was asking you to sign a petition to make financial education compulsory in the UK for primary school kids and primary school ages. Well, thanks to you, that petition has now got over 10,000 signatures. And I am here today in the House of Commons to have a meeting where we're presenting evidence. Well, Louise is presenting evidence to further this argument that we need to make this compulsory. This is still very, very early doors. There's still lots of work to do, but this is progression. And I'm just going to show you a little behind the scenes of today so you can kind of see what's happening and provide a little bit of an update.
Start of 10 around where do each of you rate the adequacy of financial education in schools in England, but perhaps more importantly, what do you think the key priorities should be for government in improving financial education? I can see Louise nodding sagely there, so I'll go to you first.
Thank you. First of all, thank you to the committee for having invited me to be here today. I think the panellists who spoke earlier made some very, very valid points. I think it's worth adding that this year sees the 10th anniversary of financial education being made part of the secondary school curriculum. Mm-hmm. And when we look at where we are today in terms of that education provision and the evidence from young people leaving education in terms of whether they, as used earlier, was whether they remember having received financial education whilst they were at school, it's in a pretty parlous state. 60% of children say they don't remember having received financial education. And when you look at how many children understand interest rates, even the most basic things, how many 16-year-olds or 18-year-olds are able to understand the fact that the increased interest rates we're seeing at the moment mean that they're earning more on their savings. It's sub 40%. And likewise, that means it would cost them more to borrow money at the moment. Mm. It's fractionally over 40%, understand that. That's awful. I think we see centres of excellence. We see schools that are doing this and delivering this information incredibly well, sometimes internally, sometimes using the resources of some of the other panellists here and other organisations that charities or otherwise that come into schools and will deliver the education to support the teachers. But it is not consistent. And I think that, for me, is the most important thing we should seek to address. I hate to use the overused phrase of postcode lottery, but it really does depend which type of school you go to, where you live, be that geography, and also which socio-demographic group you belong to, what the likelihood is of you receiving any sort of financial education whilst you're at school. And that can't be right, because we know that then impacts life outcomes for those young people as they go on to become adults. So in terms of key messages from a Go Henry perspective, I think it is consistency is key. And while schools might not access 100% of all young people in the UK, I don't know the figure, but I would guess they access 97% of kids. So that clearly to us makes sense as this is the place to tackle the problem. So consistency for one. Second, starting early. Several of the panellists earlier mentioned the MAPS Cambridge University study showing that financial habits are formed from the age of 7. If they're formed from the age of 7, starting to talk to kids about it when they're 11, you're already trying to cure problems that have set themselves in place. We should be doing it earlier. We should be helping shape those beliefs and that confidence and that understanding. And then I think, again, the panelists earlier mentioned this point. It is some form of assessment. I'm not an educationalist. I can't, where I can see places in the education system that financial education, financial literacy could sit, I don't think it's Go Henry's place to say, this is the right one. There are plenty of experts who can figure that out. But it needs to be assessed in some way, shape or form. There needs to be some kind of quality mark or statute about what has to be delivered, what the outcomes are. Let me rephrase that. Not what has to be delivered, but what the outcomes are that we are working towards, so that we're seeking to level up and children leave school.
That's standard.
All right, so today's Friday. We went to the House of Commons on Tuesday, and what I've realised in trying to edit right now is that I wasn't able to catch a lot of behind-the-scenes footage, because when you go through certain parts of the House of Commons, you get to a point where you're not allowed to use your phone for video or for photography. And I just wasn't going to risk trying to capture any images or video in that kind of setting, especially as I'm there as a guest of someone else. So what you've just seen are Louise Hill. She's the CEO of Go Henry. Her thoughts at the beginning of her session. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to link the full 2-hour session in the comments and the description. After Louise speaks, you're also going to hear from Leon Ward, and he was amazing. He is the CEO of My Bank. You're also going to hear from Sharon Davis. She's the CEO of Young Enterprise, and you'll also hear from, what was his name? It was Andrew Wilson. He's the Director of Communications and Responsible Banking for Santander. So it was very, very interesting to hear just the general thoughts of those people and how much synergy there is. I don't want to go into that right now, because what you're going to see next are my thoughts at the end of the day. I took a load of notes, things that I took away from it, and things that I'm actually hopeful for. Right, I need to give you an update as to what's been happening today. I'm currently in Canary Wharf. I have a meeting that I need to go to. But we were at House of Commons earlier, and we were at the Education Committee. And today was all about giving oral evidence around the efficacy and the effectiveness of, I should say, financial education in schools. So we heard from people who are actually working in schools, who work in education, and they're giving their views on financial education. There were a few takeaway points that I think are important to kind of share. Alongside the education experts, we also had the likes of Go Henry, who I've been working with on this petition, who also gave some oral evidence, and they were accompanied by Young Enterprise and My Bank. But this is the theme that kind of ran through the day. I think it's clear that financial education is in the curriculum as it currently sits. However, there isn't a tied-up approach to how teachers actually deliver this in schools in an effective way. And that's one of the big things that came out of today across everyone who spoke. And that was the fact that we need a national strategy to improve financial education in our schools. And on top of that, we also need to be able to, number one, upskill our teachers if they are the ones who are going to be delivering this. And there needs to be some support from the government. An example that was given was that for other areas of the curriculum, there are bursaries available to teachers so they can upskill themselves and get the necessary knowledge they need to be able to deliver a particular subject. Now, with financial education, that isn't the case. There isn't a bursary available to teachers, and teachers, and this is something I've been saying for a long time, don't necessarily understand the subject matter. And so they need specialist trainings. And there are apparently over 100 financial education qualifications that they could take, but they need support and time to be able to do that. The other thing that came out was the fact that at the moment, it's financial education is in PHSE, but it's put in with citizenship as part of the curriculum. And there is an argument as to whether or not it should be separate. There were some very, very good points made around the fact that mathematics, numeracy, and financial education, they do kind of align across topics, because if you're going to budget, you need to know the mathematical equations, how they effectively work. So does financial education need to be a separate standalone set of subjects? I originally thought yes. Hearing people speak today, I'm kind of like, maybe not, because they do have a point. Education is about getting people to recognize patterns. And when you talk about mathematics and numeracy and financial education, there is a pattern across those three things. However, the skill set for teachers is going to be a big thing. A couple of other things that came out that were really, really interesting was the talk of it's not just about the money, it's also about the mind as well. And whilst studies do show that financial habits are locked in at age 7, making this compulsory in primary school kind of gets ahead of the problem, but we also need to be able to equip our kids in school with the ability to make the right choices, even though they know the theory. Because you can understand the theory, but that doesn't mean that you're going to do the right thing, and I'm a testament to that. I used to work in banks, understood how things worked, but never applied that in my personal life because I didn't have the mindset to do that. So there's a lot of work to be done around that. I mean, overall, today was very, very interesting and very, very insightful. And hearing the questions coming from MPs, I was interested to see how they would frame questions, but it felt like they generally had an interest to find out how can we make this better. One thing that did echo across the room is the fact that this is not a contentious or controversial matter in the slightest. Everyone in the room agrees to the fact that financial education is something that we wish that we were taught much, much younger, and even till today wish that we had now as adults. And so introducing this as something that will be compulsory in primary school to start off with is a no-brainer. The next steps, I'm being told, is that there will be another consultation in March, and that will be with the Education Secretary. Then after that, they're going to actually publish their recommendations in April. Now, assuming there is a general election being called maybe in May, as some people are suggesting, it doesn't matter whether or not the Tories stay or Labour get in, because it is a concluded consultation. The recommendations could be taken up by whoever is in government come this time next year. Ultimately though, the inquiry has to be concluded by April, so that is the next step. In terms of the petition, we've got over 10,000. We still need to get to 100,000, and I think we've got just under 3 months to be able to get that. So if you could share the petition and get your friends, family, people that you know to share and sign it, that would be absolutely amazing. But this is a really good start, and we probably won't get to win every single battle, but if we can win some of them, if we can just win some of them, at least it's going to be progress. So yeah, that's been my day in London. I'm in Canary Wharf. I'm about to go to my last meeting of the day, and I'm going to be heading home. But this right here is 1 Canada Square. I used to work in this building. I am filled with nostalgia right now. But guys, catch you later on.